I think that Cameron is a very intense person. He's very intense with his writing. He's very serious with his directing. He knows about every single thing. If it is makeup, if it is visual effects, special effects, stunts, stunt coordinating, himself holding the camera. So he's just so involved. So it is really extraordinary to work with a person like that and to see that firsthand, and also to be a close friend and to know also the other side of the Jim Cameron.
Writer, producer, and director James Cameron has become a household name around the world as the result of the 1997 release of Titanic, arguably the most monumental movie ever put on film. For that astounding achievement, he received the Academy Award as Best Director and the Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Motion Pictures, as well as a nomination from the Writers Guild of America for Best Screenplay, written directly for the screen. Cameron was born in Kapuskasing, Ontario, Canada, but grew up in Niagara Falls. In 1971, he moved to California, where he studied physics at Fullerton College, while working as a machinist and later as a truck driver. But physics soon took a backseat to his new goal of becoming a filmmaker. And in 1978, he quit his trucking job to concentrate full-time on his film career.
Jim is certainly unlike anybody I've ever worked with. I think he really not only understands the technical side of how to make something look unbelievable, but he, throughout all his films, he's really had a lot of concentration on performances too, But at the same time, he's extremely demanding.
You know when you go into a Jim Cameron movie that those $8 that you spent, if it's $8 now, are totally worth it. And I'm not sure you can say that about most movie directors. They'd like you to be able to say that about them, but I don't think that you can. You can rest assured that Jim will give you your money's worth. And you know what? It's entertainment. I mean, it's the movie business. That's what we all hope, happens. And he deserves every penny he gets because, he's going to give it back to you.
From watching films, there was, as a teenager, an inherent curiosity about how shots were done, how cameras worked, how a zoom lens worked, what it all was. I was quite a techno nerd. I was the president of the science club in my high school. I remember at the time in high school, I was also in the theater arts department and writing and producing plays and working with neophyte actors at that time. So there was a definite sense of wanting to tell stories, wanting to fulfill that, what I call the narrative drive, the drive to try to tell a story, which I think is psychologically inherent in some people, the need to want to tell a story to the group. And it was from back in Neolithic times when you're sitting around a campfire, there's always like one guy that thinks he can get everybody else to laugh or whatever with some story of a giant bison.
Cameron's work on a short film led to a position at Roger Corman's New World Pictures, where in 1980, he worked on New World's production of Battle Beyond the Stars. He held many jobs at New World, including that of art director, miniature set builder, and process projection supervisor.
So the most invaluable training that I got was the next stage, which was then working on a real movie. And that was working for Roger Corman. And I don't care if it was the bottom of the heap, that was absolutely invaluable crash training, nearly crash and burn training, because people burn out very, very rapidly in that low budget independent area.
Making movies is like being in a war, and every day's a battle, and you're fighting the budget or the schedule or just the element. Jim pushes himself harder than anyone he's ever pushed as far as cast and crew. But he, in return, he expects 101% out of everybody on that set.
Determined to become a director, Cameron parlayed his production designer job on a subsequent Corman film, Galaxy of Terror, into a stint as second unit director, where he got the opportunity to shoot some dialogue scenes with the principal cast. But first, he would shoot a scene with maggots, which would lead to his first full-fledged, if not short-lived, job as director.
So I had all these highfalutin ideas going into my big second unit directing gig on Galaxy of Terror, and the first thing they had me do was filming an insert of a severed arm that's being eaten by what was supposed to be maggots, but you know, and this was like my first time directing. Now I was directing maggots. Of course, they don't use maggots. They use mealworms, and they cover them with slime, methyl cellulose, so that they look kind of slimy and horrible. And we put them all over the arm, and had the lights on and rolled the camera, and waited for the worms to do their thing, and they didn't do anything. They just kind of sat there. It looked completely inert. So I thought, well, what would happen if we put a little electrical current through these worms? Maybe they'd jump around a little more. So we get all ready to do the shot, and I didn't realize it, but two guys I knew who were producers, that they had come up behind me to watch me work because they had heard that I was doing some directing. And so I rolled the camera, and I said, action. And what they saw was I said action, and 200 mealworms all came to life and started crawling around. And then I said, okay, cut, and they all stopped moving. This must have been tremendously impressive to two low-budget horror movie producers. And I'm sure they ratcheted it up in their mind that if I could get a performance out of worms, I probably could work very well with actors. So they hired me that day to direct a low-budget horror film, which was called Piranha 2.